Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live here on AOC Community Media. This is a service to the community led by a wonderful group of volunteers coming in to read local news, state news from the Acadiana Advocate. Thanks for joining us this morning from your home studio, Bruce Cohen. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Mandy. Thank you for being at the helm of the mechanics. Couldn't do it without you, so I really appreciate it. It's a collaborative effort here at AOC, so I really appreciate that. So you go ahead and tune in, and I'm going to read the news to the lovely folks out there in Acadiana.
Thanks, Bruce.
You're welcome. Well, good morning in Acadiana. It is Monday, November 9th, 2020. I hope you're still alive and breathing. It was a heck of a week last week, but we made it through and we're still alive and here and breathing. So let me get to the news today. COVID-19 coronavirus, the latest, missing a beat. Some South Louisiana musicians say they're being forgotten as the pandemic drags on by Megan Wyatt. Many South Louisiana musicians were just coming off a Mardi Gras season high note when the state's initial coronavirus restrictions went into effect in March. At first, the canceled gigs were almost a relief for some. Professional musicians don't often have a lull. The mindset would change as a few weeks turned into a few months. What once felt like a community-wide effort to slow the spread of a virus quickly turned personal as musicians watched many workers return to the office and children go back to school. Every occupation is back to normal except for musicians, said Bryson Bernard, a Lafayette R&B artist better known as Cupid. Everyone is back to normal except for musicians. Louisiana musicians have faced a higher rate of unemployment at 79% than the national rate of 66%, according to an ongoing survey of creative workers by American for the Arts. The survey includes responses from about 7,000 musicians, including 130 who live in Louisiana. A staggering 99% of Louisiana musicians surveyed reported income loss during the pandemic. Louisiana musicians said they expected to lose an average of $22,700 in income for 2020, earning a total of just $16,000 for the year. Bernard puts his losses for the year in the six-figure range, but he's in a much better position than most of the region's artists. He hasn't relied on unemployment benefits or other assistance because he earns sizable royalty payments, especially for his 2007 single, Cupid Shuffle, which is associated with a popular line dance. Musicians like Curly Taylor, a St. Landry parasitical artist, wouldn't have that kind of steady revenue income. This was going to be a stellar year, Taylor said. And then everything, all the gigs we'd previously booked got canceled. Taylor said he's made about 5% to 10% of his usual income during the pandemic. He received unemployment assistance for about a month until a small royalty check made him ineligible for payments. Taylor said he didn't even bother chasing the $2 royalty check, cashing the $2 royalty check, but it disqualified him for further assistance because he didn't alert the state of the additional income. Since then, Taylor has done mechanic work for friends and family and dipped into savings to make ends meet. Normally I'm traveling, or I know that next week I'm going to be here, be there. I know exactly what I'm doing, Taylor said, and now it's like walking blind. I don't know when this is going to happen, how it's going to happen, or even if it's going to happen. We will get back to playing live music again for people. We don't know that. Taylor said he's less concerned about the present as he is about the future, and he's not alone. About 57% of Louisiana musicians in the national survey said they currently have no savings, compared with 31% before the pandemic. Live performances are vital these days to most professional musicians, as online streaming services have taken the bulk of profit musicians once earned through album sales. With limits on gatherings, particularly large indoor ones with alcohol, it has become almost impossible for musicians to survive on gigs this year. We've been more dependent on live performances in the last 6 to 8 years, said Jason Harrington of the folk roots band Specklers. So taking that away from us has a bigger impact. Although he's losing about $1,000 per month in gig income, Harrington has been able to rely on income from his full-time job teaching music in Vermilion Parish schools. Even so, he's begun selling old instruments, records, and equipment to supplement his earnings. I haven't had to sell my main guitar or anything like that, Harrington said, but I know musicians that have kind of been doing that too. Acadiana musicians say they often feel like nobody is supporting them, even though Louisiana's tourism industry heavily relies on their work. I think it's important for people to realize that there's something we have that's unique and special and marketable to the whole world, Harrington said. If we have culture musicians who are on the verge of disappearing during this time, we need to do anything we can to keep them afloat. It's important. Steve Riley, a Cajun musician in Evangeline Parish, has relied on unemployment benefits along with the other members of his band to stay afloat this year. Although he was at one time receiving about $700 per week in unemployment, that's dropped to about $100 per week. Riley has found creative ways to earn extra income during the pandemic by streaming live house shows with his sons and teaching online music lessons. Our fans and friends from around the country and the world watched us and helped us in ways we never would have dreamed, Riley said. They knew our livelihood was just shut down. I'm the only one who's benefited. A lot of other musicians in the area have expressed the same kind of gratitude. The initial boost of tips and donations dropped by the summer, however, as virtual performances became the norm. Riley said his family has been able to budget fairly well this year, and they've cut out restaurant and takeout meals completely and planted 2 gardens that have provided economical, healthy food as well as a new hobby. They're also preparing to sell a newer vehicle they've been making payments on for extra income. The car has gone mostly unused during the pandemic. Even as bars has reopened in parishes with low COVID-19 positivity rates, live music has been prohibited indoors in an effort to keep cases from spiking again. One of the things that makes it difficult, particularly with music in South Louisiana, is the togetherness of it, Harrington said. It's hard to dance and be socially distanced, and it's not very entertaining to watch Cajun music virtually. It's not really what it's made for. Harrington has booked an outdoor gig for the end of the month in a rural Vermilion Parish community of Cow Island. He said he mulled over the event details with his band before eventually committing. Some musicians have struggled to find outdoor gigs because the bulk of festivals and fairs have been canceled or held virtually. They've also found few outdoor performance opportunities at restaurants, cafes, or bars. It's been hard for a while, said Emily Ortega, a St. Leandro Parish singer-songwriter. Obviously, I've tried to get as many gigs as I could. I called all the restaurants in Lafayette. I was willing to work for free just for tips, and some restaurants would do it, but some couldn't even do it just for tips. They wouldn't even have enough people for it to be worth it to open the restaurant. Ortega, a graduating senior studying music business at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, relied on unemployment benefits for about 2 months over the summer. She's been able to recover only about 25% of her usual gig income in recent months by teaching virtual guitar lessons, and she's concerned about her livelihood after graduation. Prior to the pandemic, she planned to work as much as possible this year to save money ahead of an internship in Nashville, Tennessee. I think the local, state, and federal officials see music as a side hustle. This isn't what you do for a living. They're wrong, Ortega said. There are a lot of people who generally do it for a living, and that's all they do. They can make a living off of it and put food on the table. If our leaders took it seriously, they would be a real help, to be quite honest. Even one restriction eased and live performances can resume on a large scale. Some musicians fear things won't go back to what they once were. When does life continue? How does life continue? Taylor asked. Can we go back to playing in the clubs? Even if they would say right now all the clubs can open and we can go back, we wouldn't be making the same money we were making before because people don't feel safe going, you know? Taylor doesn't think most venue owners will be able to justify the cost of paying a band to perform if capacity is reduced or customers don't return in large numbers. Taylor won't even consider booking a gig unless he can make enough to cover the $800 needed to pay his band. Instead of focusing on live performance, the Zydeco artist has put away his accordion to record an album inspired by funk, blues, soul, and folk roots music. We travel a lot and meet all these guys, but because Zydeco don't play on every station in every city, our fan base gets limited, Taylor said. I'm listening to my band and theirs. We sound just as good as them. I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it a try. Expand my audience and my fan base. Mental well-being has been as significant of a challenge as financial well-being for many musicians. It made me realize that that's a part of me that pushes me to do the music is a connection to other people, Harrington said. Between playing with other musicians and the deep connection that happens here and playing live and the connection to the community and the public, it's had quite an unexpected impact. Riley said he's appreciated the unexpected time home with his family, especially when he's experimenting with different musical styles alongside his sons. He said he won't be performing in a venue anytime soon if regulations allow for live performances. His wife is at risk from complications of the coronavirus, and they've been homeschooling the children to avoid unnecessary exposure to others. We want to talk about getting back to normal, Riley said. Normal is over, as far as I'm concerned. In my head, I'm not thinking let's go back to normal. I'm thinking let's accept and embrace what's going on and deal with it the best way we can. Not every musician has someone to jam with in their household like Riley, and virtual jam sessions are challenging. Imagine the awkward pauses, overlapping conversations, and lag time of a video conference call. Now throw instruments into the mix. Playing music together kind of requires instantaneous feedback, Harrington said. We can play for each other, we can talk about it, but it's not ideal to try to play together. Over the summer, Harrington created a virtual meetup for musicians to interact and connect. Instead of playing music together, they checked in on one another and took the opportunity to move and even play music, just without the microphone picking up audio between participants. Many Acadiana musicians said that they'd like to see improved assistance programs for creative workers, and they'd like to see support from their fans, even a $1 donation to a virtual show, purchase of online merchandise, or the offering of an outdoor space to perform can make a significant difference to their bottom line. Musicians have been hit the hardest, Bernard said. And the saddest thing is we're the people who everybody calls on when they want to have a good time, to inject positivity and fun into the world, but we get forgotten about. It's like nobody cares about the musician. And just on a personal note, I'm very, very tuned into the musical world and culture at the local Acadiana area. I know a lot of these musicians personally, and it's a really bad situation for them right now. And I wish there were other ways we could support them. But just, if things ever do open up where we can view their music, please attend, support them the best way you can, and show them your support. Even just go to their websites, and if they have the availability for you to drop a line, just say, hey, we're there with you, or we're supporting you all the way. And I'm sure they would greatly appreciate at least that. Okay, moving on. That was a long piece. So I'm going to take a breath here, and we're going to read some public service announcements, and then we'll get back to the news. Vitalant honors veterans. Donate blood in honor of a veteran. This Veterans Day, Vitalant encourages the public to donate blood in honor of veterans who have served the country. Veterans are willing to give their blood to keep America safe, and one way to honor their service is by donating blood. Donors who visit the Lafayette Donation Center at 1503 Bertrand Drive through Wednesday, 11/11, will be provided, that's November 11th, of course, will be provided a card on which to write the name of a loved one who is a veteran. These names will be on display within the center through Veterans Day. We encourage donors to make an appointment by visiting vitalant.org, that's VITALANT.org, or by calling 877-25-VITAL, VITAL. Blood and platelet donations often drop during the holiday months as fewer donors are available because of seasonal activities and illnesses. But this year, the outlook is particularly worrisome, with many schools transitioning to virtual learning and businesses in work-from-home situations. About 1,600 Vitalant blood drives have already been canceled for November and December. Currently, there is an urgent need for O-negative blood. the universal blood type that all patients can receive. Seronegative donors can maximize their impact, or O-negative donors, can maximize their impact by giving a power red donation. Requests for mosquito control now available through Lafayette 311, Mosquito Prevention and Safety. Lafayette Consolidated Government, or LCG, is increasing mosquito abatement efforts in the parish. And an increase in mosquito activity is a common occurrence following the storm event. And boy, have we had some storm events in the Gulf this year. Citizens noticing an influx of mosquitoes in their area can now use the Lafayette 311 portal to request service. All submitted requests are routed directly to Mosquito Control Services, the mosquito control contractor for the parish. All right, moving back into the news. Bunker Lab Chapter launches. Network helps veterans start businesses by Adam Daigle, Acadiana business editor. Coley Francen, I'm pretty sure that's how you would say Francen. Coley Francen saw a close-up when veterans returned to civilian life. Their old loop of people essentially closed up on them. When the owner of the Lafayette-based Helical Farms first got into the agricultural industry and entered a program offered to veterans, they often tripped over the same hurdle getting established in civilian life. They left the network of people they knew before entering the service or going on a deployment. Getting back in was a challenge. Since then, he's had a couple of veterans come through his company, but now he is more excited about the Bunker Lab Chapter to be launched today in Lafayette, part of a national organization with a specific intent to help veterans, military spouses, and to start a business and provide training, resources, and connection. The effort was coordinated through the Acadiana Veteran Alliance. A kickoff celebration will be at 6 p.m. today at the Light Center's auditorium, with an online session to begin at 7 p.m. For those who don't know, the Light Center is that glowing colored egg that we see on Cajun Dome Boulevard, just past the Cajun Dome, on the left as you're going up Cajun Dome Boulevard. From what I've seen the last few years of working with industries that are trying to repatriate returning veterans, there's no shortage of passion and no shortage of skill, Francine said. What there is a shortage is the ability to connect that. It's what I've seen through it all. When you come back from the service, you find out your friends have moved on and are married. The network you've had is a network you left. The Bunker Lab Chapter in Lafayette will be the first in Louisiana and will be housed in the Light Center. The organization is a national network of veterans and spousal entrepreneurs who help those with military connections start their own business. It's the organization's 41st chapter, most of which are in much larger markets around the country. We are thrilled to be adding the Lafayette community to our Bunker Lab network, said Bunker Lab CEO Blake Hogan. The military community uniquely possesses many of the skills that allow for successful business owners. Bunker Labs is excited to foster those skills within the broad Louisiana military-connected community and support the incredible impact they can make. Excuse me. Leader of the Louisiana Economic Development and the Louisiana Department of Veterans Affairs have certified 537 veteran-owned businesses for the Veterans First Business Initiative, which promotes patronage of veteran-owned businesses in Louisiana. With collaboration from our regional partners, such as the Lafayette Economic Development Authority and the Opportunity Machine Incubator Program, the Bunker Labs project should serve the veteran-owned business community in Acadiana well, Economic Development Secretary Don Pearson said. Veterans are often easily integrated into the workforce as they are individuals who have a demonstrated focus, discipline, and performance, Pearson said. For service members seeking to become business owners, there are sometimes learning curves since financial management, tax regulations, and accounting practices may be new practices to them. For this reason, LED has supported boot camps for vets seeking to successfully operate startup businesses in the past, and we remain active in connecting veterans to opportunities in Louisiana. The location is significant. St. Andrew Ward, president and founder of the Acadiana Veteran Alliance, with the thousands of National Guard troops and veterans this side of Louisiana. The number of veterans in the state is over 200,000, he estimated. Bunker Lab can connect them with investment capital, small business administration officials, and others. It will also offer programs to connect CEOs and owners of companies with veterans. For Lafayette to get the very first Louisiana location is very important to our area, Ward said. What we want to do is empower anyone who's served to let them know that there's an organization that they can be a part of to help them grow a business. That's a good story. Okay, moving on. Man 20 arrested in New Iberia shooting. A staff report. A Jeanneret man was arrested Friday afternoon after a shooting left one person wounded. Zachary LeBlanc, 20, was booked on counts of attempted second-degree murder and aggravated criminal damage to property. He is accused of shooting a man near French and Robertson Streets in New Iberia about 9:30 p.m. Wednesday, New Iberia Police spokesperson Sergeant Aisha Hughes said in a statement, the victim was treated at a hospital for her injuries that were not considered life-threatening, she said. Okay, let me quickly look at this next story here. It's kind of it's a three-pager. Let me go on and tell them. We're getting into the state news now, but in about 8 minutes, we're going to get into our half-hour break with our day in history, zodiac or horoscope, and funerals in the Acadiana area, and a very special tribute, somewhat of a story in regards to a very important person in my family's life who passed away yesterday, and I'll read about that in a second. But for now, we'll talk about the union set to begin talks. Hundreds of Shell's Convent refinery facing job loss by Kristen Mossbrucker. About 1,100 workers at the Convent oil refinery, a combination of company and contract workers ranging from plant operators to maintenance crews, will be looking for new jobs as rolling layoffs are expected in the coming months, but only a third of those workers are unionized. A representative of the United Steelworkers Union expects to begin negotiations Monday with Shell about the layoffs and severances and potential buyouts there and at a sister refinery in Norco that could help free up some jobs for displaced Convent workers. After failing to find a buyer for its refinery in Convent, Shell is shutting down the plant as it consolidates its international assets from 14 sites into 6 energy and chemical parks. The surveyors include the Norco refinery near New Orleans in conjunction with Shell's chemical complex in Gizmar. The goal is for the refineries to be more integrated with the chemical complexes and produce more biofuels, hydrogen, and synthetic fuels as Shell positions itself for a transition to a low-carbon future because customers are asking for lower carbon products. Early retirements or buyouts by others would be key for hundreds of Shell's union workers looking to stay in their careers who would not likely be looking at sizable severance packages based on their time with the company. More than half of the Convent oil refining workers represented by the union have less than 10 years of service with Shell, though they might have decades of experience in the field. Those workers who will be looking for a job amid an economic recession in an industry that's been under pressure to consolidate operations and cut expenses during the global pandemic that's reduced the demand for refining products. In Louisiana, there are 128,500 workers in manufacturing across the state as of September, which is about 8,600 fewer jobs than last year. Royal Dutch Shell subsidiary in Louisiana expects to fully shutter the Convent refinery, which produces 240,000 barrels a day by April. The refinery, built in 1967 by Texaco in capacity, doubled during the 1980s, which began the closure process in mid-November. There are 700 Shell employees at the site with Stratos, Ascension, and St. James parishes, but only 340 workers are represented by the United Steelworkers Local 13750. Another 400 workers are contractors who are employees of independent businesses, most of which in the petrochemical industry are mid-sized companies with headquarters in Louisiana. USW Shell workers at Comfort last negotiated a contract in February of 2019 that doesn't expire until January 2022. A union representative expects to hash out voluntary buyouts and potential severance packages, but financial details were not immediately available. Norco has its own separate contract, but is represented by the same local union. A typical severance package from Shell is a calculation of roughly 3 weeks of hourly wages multiplied by years of service up to a maximum of 78 weeks of pay. According to Houston wealth management business Willis Johnson and Associates, whose clientele are oil industry workers, and is not affiliated with Shell. That can mean roughly $100,000 severance for an individual with 20 years experience, with a cap of no more than $125,000 per employee, according to the wealth management company's sample calculation. The situation at Shell is unique and not a common deal, so Marty Pouchet, the USW representative for local union 13750. It's been years since they've been entertaining severance from Shell, Pouchet said. We've had several layoffs, which they hadn't gone through any of that in years. There's been a drastic turnover in the last 10 years. A lot of folks have already retired and moved out, not to say it's a young workforce. That's because Shell has been offering self-described voluntary severance across the company since May as it sought to reduce its overall ranks around the world and offer to cut checks. By the end of 2022, Shell told investors it wants to cut up to 9,000 jobs in a corporate restructuring to save roughly $2.5 billion. It had 83,000 employees worldwide. As of December, so far only 1,500 workers agreed to voluntary buyouts, which does not include those who left the businesses because of divestments as of September 30th. It was not immediately clear when the majority of workers would leave the company or finalize transfers, considering the refinery must be shut down and decommissioned safely. There is an incentive to do it sooner rather than later, given that wages alone cost the company tens of millions of dollars each year, and the margin for gasoline is below profitability. From my experience, they're going to want to get people off the books as soon as possible, said Pouchet, who expects it to happen by January. They've been very open with us, and we've been very hopeful that they could find a buyer for the refinery. We're going to begin negotiations, and I suspect we'll come up with some favorable severance packages and find some spots we can relocate some of those folks who don't have the years, the time, and the age to take some type of severance and retire completely. The average wage for an experienced plant operator at Comfort is $40 an hour, which could be upward of $80,000 a year. That can be a difficult wage to sustain in many other manufacturing plants outside of refining oil, which would be the best case scenario for the workers, Pouchet said. Most of the other petrochemical plant wages are lower, he said. Pouchet himself is a former machinist who worked at Norco, and whose tenure dates back to the late 1980s in Louisiana. We are having discussions with both the Norco facility as well as the Gizmar facility, which is not union, Pouchet said. We're still going to have communications to see if there's a possible position open so we can place some of these guys from the Comfort site. It's unclear how many jobs would be open without sweeping early retirements. Most of the available positions posted at Shell's Louisiana sites are for internships as process operators. There was one process technician job posted at Gizmar in recent days. About a month ago, the Gizmar site posted openings for a control system engineer facility, security officer, senior rotating equipment engineer, pressure equipment integrity inspector, and IT business data consultants. Likewise, there was only internship opportunities advertised at the Norco site as of this week. About a month ago, Norco was hiring an environmental error program coordinator, a turnaround and project organizations buyer, control systems engineer, and operations support engineer, according to job advertisements. Norco does have expansion plans and expects to start up new units, but isn't anticipating a lot of new jobs, and it might not happen. But the fate of the economy, as well as the coronavirus, has a lot of that on hold, Pouchet said. Tough for those workers. Today in history, Today is Monday, November 9th, the 314th day of 2020. There are potentially 52 shopping days left in the year. On November 9th, 1989, Communist East Germany threw open its borders, allowing citizens to travel freely to the west. Joyous Germans danced atop the Berlin Wall. Also on this date, in 1620, the passengers and crew of the Mayflower sighted Cape Cod, my homeland, Massachusetts. 1938, Nazis looted and burned synagogues as well as Jewish-owned stores and houses in Germany and Austria in a pogrom of deliberate persecution that became known as Kristallnacht. That's pogrom. That's what they were called, pogroms. When the Nazis went into Jewish areas, neighborhoods, and basically cleansed out the area. 1961, U.S. Air Force Major Robert M. White became the first pilot to fly an X-15 rocket plane at 6 times the speed of sound. Also in 1961, the Beatles' future manager, Brian Epstein, first saw the group perform at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, England. In 1965, the Great Northeast Blackout began as a series of power failures lasting up to 13 and a half hours, leaving 30 million people in 7 states and part of Canada without electricity. And being from Massachusetts, I was in 1965. I was 13 years old and experienced that failure, that blackout. 1967, a Saturn V rocket carrying unmanned Apollo spacecraft blasted off from Cape Kennedy on a successful last test flight. 1976, the UN General Assembly approved resolutions condemning apartheid in South Africa, including one characterizing the white-ruled government as illegitimate. In 2000, George W. Bush's lead over Al Gore in all-or-nothing Florida slipped beneath 300 votes in a suspense-filled recount as Democrats threw the presidential election to the courts, claiming an injustice unparalleled in our history, until last week happened. In 2005, 3 suicide bombers carried out nearly simultaneous attacks on 3 U.S.-based hotels in Amman, Jordan, killing 16 victims and wounding hundreds. In 2011, after 46 seasons as Penn State's head football coach and a record 409 victories, Joe Paterno was fired along with the university president Graham Spanier over their handling of child sex abuse allegations against former assistant coach Jerry Sandusky. In 2012, retired 4-star Army General David Petraeus abruptly resigned as CIA director after an affair with his biographer Paula Broadwell was revealed by an FBI investigation. In 2018, President Donald Trump issued an order to deny asylum to migrants who went to the country illegally. The measure would be blocked by court challenges. 10 years ago, continuing his Asian tour, President Barack Obama flew from India to Indonesia, his home for 4 years of his youth. Former President George W. Bush officially kicked off the release of his memoir, Decision Points, with a book signing in Dallas. 5 years ago, minimizing sharp differences, President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed their commitment to seeking an elusive Middle East peace during a White House meeting. 1 year ago, Australian officials said wildfires racing the country's drought-stricken East Coast had left at least 3 people dead, with more than 150 homes destroyed. At least 34 people and more than 1 billion animals would die in Australia's wildfire season, with thousands of people displaced and 47 million acres burned. Scientists say that it was caused more than directly by climate change. Today's birthdays: Baseball Hall of Famer Whitey Herzog is 89, actor Charlie Robinson is 75, movie director Billy August 72, actor Lou Ferrigno, the original Incredible Hulk on TV, is 69, gospel singer Donnie McClurkin is 61, actor Ryan Overman is 51, and rapper Peppa from Salt and Pepper is 56. Rapper Scarface from the Ghetto Boys is 50 years old. Blues singer Susan Tedeschi, who's one of my faves, is 50 years old. Actor Eric Dane's 48. Country musician Barry Knox from Palmer Lee is 43 years old. And country singer Corey Smith is 41 today. Looking at the zodiac or the horoscope, if you're a Scorpio, do your best to improve meaningful relationships. Communication is vital if you're going to gain support. Present what you have to offer. Positive change is heading your way. Sagittarius, embrace change. Be open to learning something new and update your skills to reflect current trends. Self-improvement will lead to compliments and boost your ego. Romance is on the rise. Capricorn, address money matters and implement a plan to lower your overhead. Shared expenses could turn into a problem. Do your best to keep the peace. Aquarius, don't let someone distract you. It's essential to stay on top of your responsibilities. Moderation will be necessarily financially, emotionally, and physically. Pisces, change of pace will give you time to figure out your next move. Strive to protect yourself from someone trying to take advantage of you. Aries, don't fold under pressure and give into unfair solutions. Initiate plans that will lead to better days ahead. You can find solutions to the problems that have been bothering you. Taurus, if you reach out to youngsters, close friends, relatives, and loved ones, you'll come up with new ways to remain close and connected, regardless of distancing regulations put in place. Gemini, show compassion when dealing with emotional issues. Self-improvement projects are favored. Offer love and understanding over criticism and discord. Cancer, make positive changes at home. Keep your money and possessions in a safe place. Choose to do your own thing and budget wisely. Keep the peace, but don't give in to peer pressure. Leo, a chance to earn higher living may pan out as you had hoped. Consider a new way to improve your resume and pick up skills and knowledge to help you head in a more suitable direction. Virgo, my birth sign, look at all angles of every situation, and you'll come up with a diplomatic plan that will give you much needed support. Romance is featured. Libra, problems will mount if you don't make lifestyle adjustments. Indulgence will lead to criticism and opposition. Stop procrastinating. Align yourself with like-minded people and get moving. And as always, folks, the horoscope is an entertainment feature and it's not based on scientific facts. The funerals in the Keniana area today: Dominique Menard, St. Basil Catholic Church, 1803 Duhan Road in Tucson at 3:30 p.m. Virginia Minville, St. Peter's Catholic Church at 10:30 a.m. And Noah Monso, St. Michael's the Archangel Catholic Church at 224 West 5th Street in Crowley at 2 p.m. And since we're talking about the funerals and the deaths in the Keniana area, I just wanted to read a story that's about the longest running Jeopardy host, Alex Trebek, who yesterday died at the age of 80, by Lynn Elber, AP television writer. Out of Los Angeles, Alex Trebek, who presided over the beloved quiz show Jeopardy for more than 30 years with dapper charm and a touch of schoolmaster strictness, died Sunday. He was 80 years old. Trebek, who announced in 2019 that he had advanced pancreatic cancer, died at his Los Angeles home surrounded by family and friends, Jeopardy studio Sony said. Canadian-born host, who made a point of informing fans about his health directly, spoke in a calm, even tone as he revealed his illness and hoped for a cure in a video posted March 6, 2019. In the video, Trebek said he was joining the 50,000 other Americans who receive such a diagnosis each year, and then he recognized that the prognosis was not encouraging. But Trebek said he intended to fight it and keep working, even joking that he needed to beat the disease because his Jeopardy contract ran for 3 more years. Less than a week later, he opened the show with a message acknowledging the outpouring of kind words and prayers he had received. Thanks to the, believe it or not, hundreds of thousands of people who have sent in tweets, texts, emails, cards, and letters wishing me well, Trebek said, I'm a lucky guy. Messages of grief and respect from former contestants, celebrities, and the wider public quickly followed news of his loss. Alex wasn't just the best ever at what he did. He was also a lovely and deeply decent man, and I'm grateful every minute I got to spend with him, tweeted Jeopardy champion Ken Jennings. Thinking today about his family and his Jeopardy family, which in a way included millions of us, it was one of the great privileges of my life to spend time with this courageous man while he fought the battle of his life. You will never be replaced in our hearts, Alex. James Holzhauer, another Jeopardy star, posted on Twitter. John Legend tweeted that he was obsessed with Jeopardy as a nerdy kid growing up in Ohio. I loved and revered Alex Trebek since I can remember. What an iconic career. Jeopardy bills itself as America's favorite quiz show and captivated the public with a unique format in which contestants were told the answers and how to provide the questions on a variety of subjects, including movies, politics, history, and popular culture. They would answer by saying what is or who is. Trebek, who became its host in 1984, was a master of the format, engaging in friendly banter with contestants, appearing genuinely pleased when they answered correctly and at the same time moving the game along in a brisk, no-nonsense fashion whenever people struggled for answers. He never pretended to know the answers himself if he really didn't, deferring to the show's experts to decide whether a somewhat vague answer was close enough to be counted as correct. I try not to take myself too seriously, he said to an interviewer in 2004. I don't want to come off as a pompous ass and indicate that I know everything when I don't. The show was a brainstorm of Julianne Griffin, wife of the late talk show host entrepreneur Merv Griffin, who said she suggested to him one day that he create a game show where people were given the answers. Jeopardy debuted on NBC in 1964 with Art Fleming as MC. It was an immediate hit. It lasted until 1975 and was revived in syndication with Trebek. Long identified it by a full head of hair and trim mustache, though in 2001 he startled viewers by shaving his mustache completely on a whim. Trebek was more than qualified for the job, having started the game show career on Reach for the Top in his native country. Moving to the U.S. in 1973, he appeared on The Wizard of Odds. That's The Wizard of Odds, ODDS, High Rollers, The 128,000 Question, and Double Dare. Even during his run on Jeopardy, Trebek worked on other shows. In the early 1990s, he was the host of 3, Jeopardy, To Tell the Truth, and Classic Concentration. Jeopardy made him famous. He won 5 Emmys as his host, including one last June, and received stars in both the Hollywood and Canadian walks of fame. In 2012, the show won a prestigious Peabody Award. He taped his daily Jeopardy shows at a frenetic pace, recording as many as 10 episodes, 2 weeks' worth in just 2 days. After what was described as a mild heart attack in 2007, he was back at work in just a month. He posted a video in January of 2018 announcing that he's undergone surgery for blood clots on the brain that followed a fall he had taken. The show was on hiatus during his recovery and had yet to bring in a substitute host for Trebek, save once when he and Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak swapped their TV jobs as an April Fool's prank. In 2012, Trebek announced that he was considering retirement, but had been urged by friends to stay on so he could reach 30 years on the show. He still loved the job, he declared. What's not to love? You have the security of a familiar environment, a familiar format, but you have the excitement of new clues and new contestants on every program. You can't beat that. Although many viewers considered him one of the key reasons for the show's success, Trebek himself insisted he was only there to keep things moving. I'm introduced as the host of Jeopardy, not the star, he said in a 2012 interview. My job is to provide the atmosphere and assistance to the contestants to get them to perform their very best, he explained. And if I'm successful doing that, I will be perceived as a nice guy, and the audience will think of me as being a bit of a star. But not if I try to steal the limelight. Stars of Jeopardy are the material and the contestants, he said. In a January 2019 interview with the Associated Press, Trebek discussed his decision to keep going with Jeopardy. It's not as if I'm overworked. We take 46 days a year, he said. But he acknowledged he would retire someday if he lost his edge or the job was no longer fun, adding, and it's still fun. Born July 22nd, 1940 in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, Trebek was off to boarding school by his Ukrainian father and French-Canadian mother when he was barely in his teens. After graduating high school, he spent the summer in Cincinnati to be close to a girlfriend, then returned to Canada to attend college. After earning a philosophy degree from the University of Ottawa, he went to work for the Canadian Broadcasting Company, starting as a staff announcer and eventually becoming a radio and TV reporter. He became a U.S. citizen in 1997. Trebek's first marriage to Elaine Callan ended in divorce. In 1990, he married Jane Caravan, and they had two children, Emily and Matthew. Trebek lived with his family in Los Angeles, the Studio City section not far from Hollywood. Trebek is survived by his wife, their two children, and his stepdaughter, Nikki. And I just wanted to read that because my family, my wife, my son, and I are very avid watchers. We watch Jeopardy every single day here in Acadiana at 3:30 p.m. on the local CBS station or ABC, I'm not sure which. Whatever, we watch it every day religiously. Huge fans, and I'm very interested. Didn't mention it in the story, but I'm very interested as to see if the show will continue with a new host or they'll just play out the episodes that haven't been aired yet and then call it quits. We'll see, folks. Keep your ears and eyes tuned to that. Okay, getting back into the stories. Chemical oil releases minimal, state says. Impacts of hurricanes Delta and Laura studied by Mark Schiffelstein. A spill of more than 15,000 gallons of crude oil just east of the town of Cameron during Hurricane Laura has been determined to be significant enough to trigger a federal state natural resource damage investigation, according to the Louisiana Oil Spill Coordinator's Office. Apart from the well-documented fire and release of chlorine gas at a biolab chemical manufacturing facility in Westlake, the oil release from the Wyote Operating Company production facility is so far the only environmental incident in the aftermath of Laura and Hurricanes Delta and Zeta that has triggered regulatory actions by state agencies beyond initial checks and follow-ups. The damage was originally reported to the Coast Guard National Response Center on August 28th, the day after Laura made landfall, in an area where surge levels approached 17 feet, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. According to a series of Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality inspection forms from September and October, inspectors found between 10 and 15 acres of marsh were fouled by an oil spill near one of two white oak facilities just northeast of Cameron. On October 6th, inspectors wrote that a cleanup was underway but would likely take between 1 and 3 months to complete. In many cases, a combination of wind and water actually knocked oil or chemical storage tanks off their foundations and blew or floated oil and chemical containers into wetland areas, while state officials are still checking on many of the smaller containers that end up at wetlands or open water along the coast. More has yet been identified as a significant threat. Louisiana State Police Hotline fielded nearly 600 emergency notifications in the first 2 days after Laura, and a much smaller number after Delta. That included hundreds of reports of broken natural gas lines at addresses across southwest Louisiana, often the result of trees rolling onto homes or being uprooted, breaking, or pulling up pipelines. Okay, it's unclear that Delta, which arrived 2 days earlier, contributed to the incident. Well, I already read about that. Okay, moving on. Louisiana staying stable amid national outbreaks by Jeff Adelson. The U.S. is again amid a record-breaking wave of coronavirus, its third of the year, with outbreaks in the Midwest pushing the country's daily count of new cases above 120,000. But Louisiana appears to be bucking the trend, at least for now. There are no firm theories on why Louisiana, the only state with cases spiking at the same time as the national numbers in the spring and summer, has seen only a slow rise this time. Adherence to mask wearing and social distancing guidelines and the still warm fall temperatures in the state might be factors. Alternatively, some worry that small increases in new cases and hospitalizations might portend the state is moving toward another outbreak, one concealed by a reduction in testing. Regardless of whether Louisiana's relatively stable position is real or a mirage, experts advise residents need to continue taking precautions. You have to remember there are hundreds of cases occurring every day in Louisiana. There's always is a risk that you can get complacent and the percent positivity starts to rise and you get that increased transmission again, said Dr. Amish Ajala, senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in Baltimore. On Friday, the U.S. logged almost 133,000 new coronavirus cases, the third consecutive day it had set a record since the start of the pandemic in the spring. The country also marked the fourth consecutive day of 1,000 deaths, the most fatal stretch since late August. The latest outbreak has pushed 27 states above their previous 7-day records, according to the New York Times. While the state overall is not looking particularly worse than it has in recent months, there are some areas that are cause for concern. The area around Shreveport, which never saw its numbers fall quite as much as other areas of the state, has seen cases rise rapidly, with the 7-day total jumping over 1,000 cases, an increase of more than 40% over the last week. The Lafayette area has seen even more dramatic increases, with cases nearly doubling over the last week. However, its overall count of 640 cases over 7 days remains relatively low. In New Orleans, Tulane University President Michael Fitz sent out an email to students and employees Friday saying the school was adding new restrictions and testing requirements after seeing an increase in cases that officials attributed to Hurricane Zeta and Halloween celebrations. The school reported 170 new cases last week, a steep increase after weeks in which new case counts never rose to the double digits. Okay, sports betting widely embraced in Louisiana, relatively small take expected for state by Wilson Tell. While nearly 2 out of 3 Louisiana voters backed sports betting on election day, the money raised for state services likely will be well short of a jackpot. The legislation that authorized the vote did not include an estimate of how much money it will generate, but on a fiscal note, a portion of legislation that addresses the financial impact was added to a separate sports betting bill earlier this year, said that total tax receipts the state might expect to eventually receive are relatively small. That note also said the experience in Mississippi, which authorized sports betting in 2018, might be indicative of what it will mean in Louisiana. In 2019, sports wagering raised about $3.5 million for the state, said Alan Godfrey, executive director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. You are definitely looking at a relatively small source of revenue overall, said Alan Levine, principal associate for the Pew Charitable Trust, who has written about the subject. Voters in 55 of the state's 64 parishes endorsed the gambling on November 3rd, some by margins of 70% or more, and the plan passed with 65% of the vote. Okay, moving into sports. A no start, Cajuns may have discovered a key solution to future successes by Kevin Foote. The season-long search for the complete game will continue for at least one more week for the number 25th ranked, that's nationally ranked, UL Raging Cajuns. Coming off a 614-yard performance at Texas State, Saturday's homecoming game against Arkansas State seemed to be the perfect opportunity to take the big step. It didn't happen. The offense struggled to get anything done in the first half in the 27-20 comeback win, but while getting shut out in the first half was alarming, something happened in the fourth quarter that might have made it all worthwhile. Sometimes hardships are necessary because all your ducks can be in a row. Trusting the kicker has been an issue for UL throughout the season. Nate Snyder missed a 30-yard field goal in the first half. So with the offense still not clicking on all cylinders in the fourth quarter, UL coach Billy Napier gave the backup Kenny Amadeus a shot. Not only did the redshirt sophomore from Clute, Texas, nail 2 field goals, starting with a 35-yarder with 8:21 left to go to give the Cajuns a 17-12 lead at the time, but he made it look easy. To me, it's like a new beginning, Almadera said. It's like a new start for me. Imagine how many nights over the past 3 years Almadera's went to sleep wondering if it would ever happen. You could see the euphoria and relief in his huge smile on the Zoom media conference after Saturday's win. On Saturday, he had indeed delivered it in a big way, both for himself and his team. It opens a lot for me and gives me the confidence that what I'm doing is worth it, Almadera said. His second field goal, a 43-yarder for a 20-12 lead with 3:59 left, really brought some huge relief to UL sideline. With 6:06 left, UL running back Elijah Mitchell ran 47 yards to the ASU 2. On that play, however, guard Osiris Torrance was flagged for a late hit way behind the play. 3 plays later, quarterback Levi Lewis took a 12-yard sack to suddenly back the Cajuns up to the 27. Almendares made sure all wasn't lost by nailing the 43-yard field goal and at last securing an 8-point lead. And let's see, it's 9:56 at this moment, so we are past our usual audio portion of the broadcast news on our TV stations, but you can still pick us up on our online streaming radio station, Cypress Street Radio, CYPRESS Street Radio. Just put it in your browser, go to our homepage, click on play, or our YouTube station, AOC Community Media. I believe there's one last sports story to read here. LHSAA Chief Bonine refutes rumors. Executive Committee to make crucial decisions Tuesday by Robin Bombro. It was easy to notice some disappointment and a touch of frustration in Eddie Bonine's voice. How many times do I have to stand in front of a camera and explain it? The word cancel is not coming out of my mouth, Bonine said. We're not planning to cancel football championships. There will be a lot of things discussed Tuesday at our executive committee meeting, and canceling the football players won't be one of them. So Bonine, the LHSAA's executive director, refuted one rumor making the rounds. Bonine also took down another rumor that had the LHSAA moving its Prep Classic Football Championship set for December 26th, 29th away from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Not true. We have not had discussions with any other site, Bonine said. Next, Bonine wants decisive dialogue with the LHSAA's executive committee on multiple topics when the group meets Tuesday at the LHSAA's office. Freewheeling discussions are expected to cover a wide range of items inquiring minds, football coaches and fans want to know about. Bonine said the list includes how many games football teams must play to qualify for the playoffs, football playoff brackets and power ratings for 2020, what to do if COVID-19 impacts the playoff team, and what to do if a COVID-19 outbreak puts the LHSAA's January convention in jeopardy. We are going to have to get into that and discuss a number of situations and how to handle them, Bonine said. For example, we just found out 2 more schools will miss 2 weeks and come back out off quarantine a day or 2 before the final regular season game. By LHSAA policy, all games last week must be completed by afternoon or early evening on Saturday because we announced football playoff pairings on Sunday. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up for the news and everything in the Acadiana statewise, and I threw in the Alex Trebek story. So I appreciate you joining us this morning and listening in. We are Local News Live. We are a product of AOC, along with the collaboration of the Acadiana Advocate. We have volunteer readers like myself who go on the air every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to bring in the news to keep you up to date. I'm Bruce Cohen. Will always be Bruce Cohen. I appreciate you listening in this morning. If you wish to become a volunteer, you can go to aocinc.org, put down the volunteer tab, fill out the form, and Miss Mandy will be in touch with you. And you can do it from your home studio like I have been for the last 7 or 8 months. So we appreciate you tuning in. as I always end my broadcast, I say, stay safe, stay healthy, and be smart. I just read you an article that the state is doing well, but there's always the possibility of coronavirus cases spiking. So please take precautions. Just be smart, people. Be smart. And I always end my broadcast with saying, be kind to each other. And we'll see you on the flip-flop. Have a good day.